Hey everybody, it's Scott Fortunoff here, and we are in week 7 of Semester with Scott. How time flies when you're having fun. So today we're going to talk about the life of a fabric line, and how I'm going to do that is I'm going to show you by showing you our website, because the website kind of walks you through the different stages and the life of a fabric line. So why don't we go right to it, and today I'm going to use the Studio E website to demonstrate different times of life of a fabric line. So why don't we go right here. And here we go. So here's the Studio E website, www.studioefabrics.net. And of course, over here you hit home, and that's the home page. We have these nice banners over here. But right here, what I want to focus on mostly today is the fabric lines. So we have just released, which I'm going to talk about, shipping soon, and shipping now. And then below that we have basics. The basics, we sell these all the time. They're in stock all the time. And 108 fabrics are for quilt backs. So let's start with the just released. So sometimes the terminology can be a little bit confusing. Just released to some people might sound like we just are shipping the fabrics to the stores, but really it's not. Just release is when we go out with the new collection. So you guys know by now from learning on the previous weeks that we come out with new collections in January, May, July, and October. And some of our companies, really Henry Glass and maybe Free Spirit at some point, will also have a March release. And when I say release, that means we come out with new collections for sale. That means we don't have the fabric to ship. We're just starting to sell the fabric. And the fabric won't ship until probably 5 to 7 months later from when we start selling the line. So just released. So these are some of our brand new collections that we went out with in October, but they're also some of the July releases that are in there too, because those don't ship until later. After we're done with just released, we go to shipping soon. Shipping soon means shipping within the next 2 months. So I just want to say that. So these lines in this group are not shipping, they're shipping in more than 3 months from now. And that's why they're here on just release. So you go here, you could click on any of the lines and see the entire collection. For shop owners, they could click on and order entire collection. And in addition, there's a new addition here. They have the October 20 lookbook and the July 2020 lookbook. So you could watch all the lines in one shot for that certain release. So here are all the lines here. And you could poke around by clicking on any of the designs and see the entire group that is there. So that is just released. And this is also when our reps are going out with the color cards, and we're shipping the color cards to our distributors and overseas distributors as well. So now let's move to shipping soon. So shipping soon is just what it sounds like, shipping soon. So this is shipping within the next 2 months. And why we have a shipping soon is because we need to give our customers a heads up that we're going to be getting ready to order these lines. So if you want to order these lines on the initial printing, now is your time to order it. So we get it in time, and then we order extra backup based on what we've sold. So here we have 4 collections that are shipping soon. And here we'll click on one, American Style. And you could see this one was shipping November, it's now shipping December. So, that one just shows that we are having delays. COVID has definitely thrown some wrenches into our business this year, and that's not typical, or not typical until COVID hit, that, all the lines are not shipping in the exact month they were supposed to. Most are, but a couple are, a couple days, weeks, months, not months, days or weeks later than they should be. So moving on from here. So now we have shipping now. So shipping now is exactly what it sounds like. So shipping now, these lines are shipping currently to quilt shops, or they just started. We don't give a precise date of when the fabric lines are going to ship. We usually just give a month, because it's hard to be so precise in something like that. Yeah, we could keep updating it and put it up there, but it's just really not worth the time or the effort to do that. So we just put it in a month, and then everyone knows it's shipping in a certain month. So we have shipping now. And if you guys recall, when we were in New York, every month I would go across to Gotham Quilts and I would show you the shipping now lines. That was my way of saying, hey, consumers, these lines are now hitting the shops. It's now time for you to go find them. Because I know a lot of times people see the just released release lines, and they're saying, when can I get it? When can I get it? And it's not for a long time. But so now that they're shipping now, we do those videos, and actually Marcus and I are going to start doing those videos again of shipping now. So it kind of gives you a heads up that certain lines that you're waiting for are ready to be purchased. So these are the shipping now lines, and here they are, all right here. And they're all current. We try to keep the website updated, but it's a great reference for you all to use if you're looking for certain fabrics. Also, if you want to know where to buy, if you're looking for a certain line, it's hard to say which, we don't say which shops have which lines, but you can go to the store Locator, and you can put in a state where you are and see if these stores have any of our fabrics or they're a customer. If they don't have the fabric, you could just ask them and say, hey, I'm interested in this fabric, and maybe they will buy it for you. But in addition, so one other thing I want to tell you is over here, actually a couple other things I'm going to tell you while we're on the website. So we have the designer area, and this talks to you about all the designers, who they are, and you could click on them and see, let's see one for example, let's see. So here, let's pick Kathleen Hill. So Kathleen Hill, you could read up a little bit on her, and then you could see her most recent collection. So Horse Whisper is her most recent collection. And you could do that with all the designers. So let's see, what else we got here? So then we have free projects. So this is a really important thing, and I'm going to introduce a guest speaker to speak on this briefly, but I just wanted to tell you. So with every line, we want to help our shops promote our lines and help them sell more of our fabric. So this is our way of helping them. So we give them free projects, which are on this page. You can see there's a zillion here, and these are for you to use whenever you want, as you see fit. But it helps the shops promote the line and merchandise and market the line. But so while we're talking about the free projects, I wanted to tell you that I have a guest that I'm going to have on any minute, and her name is Heidi Pridemore, and she's from the Whimsical Workshop. Heidi does a ton of the free projects that we use. She creates them with our team. Our designer will say, I want to do a pillowcase or a table runner, and Heidi will design it based on their discussions. She will also write up all the instructions. But so why don't I turn it over to Heidi, and why don't we hear what Heidi has to say about the free projects?
Thank you, Scott. I'm Heidi from the Whimsical Workshop, and our company designs and develops all of the free project sheets for the Jaftex companies that you can find on their website as free downloads. You'll also see them in your quilt shops. That a lot of times they will be kitting the project with our patterns. And today I'm going to talk about how we develop the patterns from start to finish.
All right, so Heidi, thank you. I'm so glad you're here with us. I'm sure everyone will be interested to hear what you say. So talk me through the process. So we have Karen and Lisa, Megan, and Diana in the office. So let's assume that they finish a collection. It's ready to go. That we're ready to commit to the line. So then they communicate with you. What are the steps from there?
Well, usually I will either get a phone call or an email. It's the collection is pretty much done. Usually you have already signed off on the collection at this point, and they tell me this is the collection. We need however many projects we need. Is there a panel? Is there a novelty stripe? Is there a certain print in it that they want showcased? So they'll give me that information up front. Usually we have 2 to 3 days to turn around the designs, and we take the scans. They send us a scan of each piece at full scale, and we bring them into our computer and make a swatch page where they're all the same color, not same color, all the same scale. And I use that swatch page to develop the pattern. Usually when you put all of the swatches at the same size, you will immediately see which ones are more prominent and which ones fade to the backgrounds. And that tells me how to use the fabrics within the quilt. Because if you have a really strong and prominent fabric, you only need to use it a little bit to showcase it. And if you have a quieter, softer fabric, that's the one you're going to use more throughout the quilt. For example, is the Timbernomies. When we got this line, it had the panel in the center that they wanted to showcase. And I think if I remember correctly, Karen had wanted me to utilize the plaid, which is out here, because it is probably the most unique piece in the collection. So how do you put it into a quilt so it looks like it fits all together and tells a story and is pleasing enough that people want to make the project? So that's the first step.
It's like, which comes first, the egg or the chicken? Does the project come first or the fabric? All right. So, a lot of our lines I notice have, 2 quilts. One will be pieced and one will have a panel. We do that a lot. And listen, quilts, everyone has quilts. So can you talk to us a little bit more about the other, the other stuff, the bags, the table runners and things like that, pillowcases.
But a lot of times when we're looking at a collection and deciding whether it's going to be quilts or secondary projects like pillowcases and bags and stuff, we're looking at it and saying, are there some fabrics in this collection that really need to stand out on their own? Do they need to shine? Do they need to be the showcase piece, which is then going to be a bag or a pillow or something that only uses a couple pieces of fabric? We also look at the skill level, what the project is targeted towards. Like obviously timber nomies it can be a sweet Christmas or it could be kids. So you're going to go with a more simplistic project, one for Christmas, so it sews up faster. Or for kids, you don't want to spend 6 months on a quilt they're going to drag around and love.
Right.
You want to give them a quilt that they can destroy. So we look at that. We also look at the feel of the fabric, the temperature of the fabric. Is it something that's really modern and contemporary and would look really cool in a tote bag? Or does it really showcase better into a quilt? So that kind of comes into the decision. Also, like who's the target market? Like what age bracket? Younger kids or younger people may not have a lot of room for a bigger quilt, so we'll go smaller, do pillows.
So most of the projects I've seen, I think quilts, table runner, placemat, those are popular, like some beach bags, pillowcases. Anything else you could think of that I'm missing that we do?
We've started doing sleeping bags.
Yes, those are nice.
Doing like backpacks, trick-or-treat bags, anything that's small and easy for some of the novelty prints. Obviously, like the beach, we did like a launch reclining chair organizer, so you can lay in the beach chair and have your suntan lotion right there.
Oh yes,
yeah.
That was for a pool party. Yes.
Yeah.
So all right, so let's talk about a little bit more of the process, because I think consumers are always interested in the behind the scenes and
Right.
what's going on. So now you spoke to Karen or Lisa, and you know which line you're doing. You know you want to do a quilt,
right.
or you know you want to do something. So then, what is the next step in your process?
So the next step is for me to actually design it, and people would be surprised to know that I actually design everything in line art and color fields. I'm not actually dropping the fabrics in at this point. I'm truly just balancing the design based on the colors being used in each fabric. Then once that preliminary design is done, then it goes over to Matthew, my husband and partner. He creates the digital image where we drop in the fabric at 100% scale to make it look like the quilt, or if it's a tote bag or a pillow, he will model it to look like a photograph versus a flat image. And at that point, I make any corrections that I think it needs to balance. Sometimes it's the width of the border needs to change, or maybe that's too strong in a color. We need to soften it with a different color. And then it goes back to your team and they review them, and then they'll come back with their comments or approval. And at that point, the digital design is done. Once they've approved it, we have an image that goes on the covers of the free patterns that people can see when they download it. A lot of people have questioned about digital versus sewn projects on pattern covers. And I have to say, from a design standpoint, a digital image reads better, is more true to what the quilt will look like than a photograph of a finished quilt. It's very hard to photograph a quilt and get the color right, to get the scale to look correct, because it's kind of got some texture to it. At that point, then it goes into development for yardages, instructions, illustrations, and those are all different steps. So the first thing we do is create 100% scale drawing of the quilt that we can then reference as if we had the actual quilt in front of us for measurements. That's how we know all our measurements are right, because we all use the same roadmap to look at, because there's a team of 4 of us writing instructions.
And you print it on a large printer? Is that what you do?
No, it's all on a computer screen. You just are
it's just on the screen.
Right, but I can say, okay, what's the center? I can click it. It'll tell me how big that center is exactly. So that is our blueprint. we create all of the illustrations first so that the team that's writing it can understand the story. And that's, I think, what makes our instructions stand out is that we tell a story with pictures and with words. So if you're a literal person, you can read how to do the quilt. And if you're a visual person, you're just going to look at the pictures till you get in trouble, and then you'll jump back over to read it if you're in trouble. So the instructions are built for either customer to be able to follow them. So illustrations are first, then the instructions, and then it goes into a 4-person editing process. And once the editing is done, the pattern is done.
And do you mock them? Do you make them, or only if the customer requests?
Oh yeah, only like if a customer says, hey, we need to make up the sample, we will definitely make it up. And if whenever possible, we will test the pattern. The time frames, sometimes like they don't have the fabric for 6 months. So there's no, you can learn a little testing it out of other fabric, but you're not going to find any of the nuances or errors that you may find with the printed fabric if you're using something else. Like if the panel's the wrong size or the stripe doesn't cut right. Those are things you only find out when you're testing with the actual fabric. Now, if we are designing anything with a template or anything that's unique or different, I will make a test block just to make sure that it does work the way I think it will work before we put that into a pattern. But most of the time it's traditional half square triangles and shapes that we know work. So.
Okay, I have a bunch of follow-up questions. So how long does that process take around? Or, I mean, obviously it depends on the project, but
right.
On the short side versus the long side, about?
Usually it's about a week in development. If we were just to do it start to finish with nothing else, it would take us about a week to develop the whole thing from design to end result. So.
But like in hours? I mean.
Oh, gosh, in hours. Well, the design process can take 4 to 6 hours, depending on the design itself. And the instructions, like you said, it really goes based on the skill. Like if it's a really easy beginner quilt, it'll take a couple hours versus some quilts have taken us 40 hours just to write the pattern because it's so complex. Okay. Not yours, but other patterns.
And you charge by the complexity?
Most of the time we do. Some of our bigger customers, we just have a flat fee that we charge you. And so it kind of works its way out. But yeah, it's most of the time, because we also do a lot of ghostwriting for a lot of the really big designers out there that don't write their own patterns. So then, always are trying to charge for what the time is it takes to write the pattern.
Okay, next question. What computer programs do you guys dabble in?
We use Creative Cloud. So Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. I've used those from the get-go. They're the standard industry for designers. So, they're very professional. They'll do everything we need to get them done.
Okay. So, every once in a while we get an error. So it sounds like the error happens because we didn't realize until someone actually made it something. And we usually will get it fixed. How does that come about? It's just because.
In the end, we are human.
Yes.
And we are trying to keep the error rate down to an absolute minimum. But if you were to go back and look at errors that people will find, more often than not, it is, the panel came in a wrong size, or
yes,
or we thought the direction was going with the fabric, it was going length of fabric. Again,
right, exactly.
That being said, yes, there are times that we put the wrong size of a square.
Well, I'm not trying to pick on the negative.
No, I want consumers to know this too, because it's like, we want you to tell us when there is an error and we will do everything to fix it. Just remember that the people writing it are human and errors may.
Well, I'll from my point of view, every time I get those emails, they're the most annoying to me because I can't fix them on my own without emailing a lot of people. So I kind of just pass them off, but I always hate those messages. But because
we all do.
People get into it and then they are like, oh, I cut something wrong, or you're right. The panel went selvage to selvage, and you thought it was length of the fabric and it's width of the fabric.
And I can tell you I have written thousands of patterns, and in the beginning, I would just be sick to my stomach when we found an error. And I would just be like, how could this happen? I've learned over the time, it's your willingness to fix it and your willingness to address it. It's like, okay, we did make a mistake, but how can we rectify this for you?
Right.
And then obviously, unfortunately, it's usually the first person that catches it. So it's then, thank them for correcting it for everybody else.
Well, usually after you correct it, we then will repost it and say corrected on such and such a date. So listen, if for consumers out there, if you see an error or something that seems fishy, please let us know. There are a lot of times also we get emails and the sewer is doing something wrong. They're cutting it the wrong way or doing something the wrong way.
Well, that's the thing. Just make sure when you're doing a free project or even a paid project, take whatever company wrote that pattern, check their website for updates. Because even though you are just doing it, it might have been out for a year and someone else may have caught that. And most people I know, we have one. I know you put them up revised. Always check for a revision before you start cutting into your fabric to save yourself any kind of headache that you may run into.
All right, so a couple more things. So one of the things I want to ask about is basics. A lot of times each of the companies, for example, Studio E will have just color and peppered cottons, and we try to tie those into the lines. How does that play in? Does the designer say, hey, or you call the designer and say, hey, I need something here that you don't have,
Well, what they do is, and this is across all the designers now, when they send me the base collection, they will also pull out the basics that match that collection the best, because I only can color correct on a screen. They actually have the real artwork. So they will always pull basics for me. Sometimes I'll use only one basic. Sometimes the quilt will need 4 or 5 basics. The beauty is that there is such a range in all 3 companies that we work with that there's always a basic that we need. If we need it, you guys already have it. So you have the color, or you have the style, or you have the tone we need. But it is the designers, the fabric designers send us the basics, and when we print that first swatch page of the collection, we print the basics with it as well. And to me, it is a whole collection at that point. So, and I think that quilts are stronger when you have basics mixed in. I think that if you just try to take the prints, it's too much. There's too much information. It's too busy. And you want to be able to give your eyes a break somewhere.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna give you my last question, and so I don't. You probably don't know this, but when the color cards are made, then the projects are added on, and since I'm OCD, I check all the color cards, and I tell all the designers, if you don't let me check the color card and there's an error, I'm gonna be very angry with you. But if you let me check it, I'm not gonna be angry. If I screw it up, I screw it up, and I can blame myself. And that's fine with me. But I'm always checking the pattern. So I always know how many yards of this and all the multiples. Because when we do the projects, just so you consumers know, we write it for 1 kit, 6 kits, and 12 kits. So our sales rep goes into a shop and the customer says, oh my God, I love that quilt. I want to kit it. I want to make 12 kits. They know it's exactly listed what they need to buy from the sales rep. So here's my question. So I've noticed that most of your quilts, I think maybe all of them, the backing is usually a skew from the line. Any reason why you're not using 108?
We don't tend to use the 108 because obviously if your team says, hey, use the 108, I would use it. But the back is as interesting as the front. And for me, it's a whole nother place to showcase the print, especially if it's something we can't easily use on the front. And I know that consumers will make that, they know if they like to have backs with the print on it or if they like a solid, and they will jump to the 108s at that point. But for me, a lot of times we're just tying in. Now, my job is to make sure that we use as many prints as makes sense in the project. So for us, that's just another avenue of place for us to put it, is on the back.
Right. So just again, when we make the color cards, in addition to the existing brand new line, for example, let's say it's Timber Nomies, we usually put our basics on the same color card, and they're also suggested 108s. I wonder if maybe we should start suggesting some 108 for the back, or you just think that the consumer is like, hey, I don't want that on the back, I want a 108, or they'll just pick based on what they want.
Well, just brainstorming here. I mean, another option would just be, we list the backing the way we do, which is based on 42 inch fabric. We could say if purchasing 108-inch fabric and give them a yardage. If you guys want to call out a specific 108, there's no reason we can't do an either or.
Well, so what I'm saying is, like, we call out the basics on the same color card. Usually we'll call out a 108 collection that goes with it as well.
Right, but we're not giving them the yardage for it. We don't give them the yardage for what to purchase 108 for your backing. The yardage is completely different than if you purchase 42. So perhaps we add a line to saying, even if it's an asterisk, hey, if you're purchasing 108, you only need 2.5 yards of fabric versus the 5 yards we may tell you up above. That's certainly another piece of information people could use.
That could definitely, it's just a thought. I mean, listen, we're always trying to, give people options and push our fabrics as
well. And the more you and I do the math, the less they have to do, the happier everybody is.
Exactly. All right, I think that's all I have from you. I think it's definitely some good information. And Heidi, I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. So now all you guys know where all of your projects are coming from. For the most part, I mean, I would say, Heidi, you probably do 90% of the projects for Studio E Blank and Henry Glass. So we are thankful for you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. So that's the end of week 7, semester with Scott. And we'll see you next week, semester with Scott, week number 8. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.